You know, there are some competitions where the final result tells only half the story. And then there are competitions like this one. The 2026 London Diamond League wasn't just another stop on the World Athletics calendar. It brought together the very best women's high jumpers on the planet, including the reigning Olympic champion and world record holder Yaroslava Mahuchikh, Australia's world champion Nicola Olyslagers, former world champion Eleanor Patterson, Serbia's rising superstar Angelina Topić, and an incredibly deep international field. On paper, this looked like another opportunity for Mahuchikh to continue her remarkable dominance. Instead, it became one of the most dramatic high jump competitions we've seen all season. As always in championship caliber competitions, the opening heights serve mainly to separate the field. Most of the favourites comfortably cleared the early bars, conserving energy while waiting for the competition to truly begin. By the time the bar moved to 199, the competition had entered completely different territory. The athletes who remained were no longer fighting simply for a place on the podium, they were fighting for victory. Every clearance from this point forward would either strengthen their position or completely change the outcome of the meet. And this is exactly where championship experience begins to matter. Former world champion Eleanor Patterson was the first to face enormous pressure. After battling through the earlier heights, she now had just one opportunity remaining to keep her hopes alive. The Australian has delivered countless clutch jumps throughout her career, but this time, 199 proved just to be a little too much. Despite a determined effort, the bar refused to stay on the pegs. Her competition was over, and just like that, one of the pre-meet favourites was eliminated. Attention immediately shifted to one of the sport's brightest young stars, Angelina Topić. At only 20 years old, the Serbian has already established herself among the world's elite. Her smooth technique, her composure under pressure, and her remarkable consistency have made her one of the biggest threats to Mahuchikh over the past 2 seasons. But now she faced exactly the same challenge. One final attempt, one final chance. Topić accelerated beautifully down the runway. Her takeoff looked strong. She generated excellent height over the bar, but her hips drifted ever so slightly into the crossbar. Just enough, the bar tumbled, and with that, Angelina Topic's competition came to an end. It was another outstanding performance, but not quite enough to stay with the 2 women who were still producing something extraordinary. Only 2 athletes remained, the reigning Olympic champion and the reigning world champion, Yaroslava Mahuchikh and Nicola Olyslagers. A rivalry that has quickly become one of the defining battles in modern women's high jump. Over the last few seasons, these 2 have consistently pushed one another to greater heights. Sometimes Mahuchikh comes out on top, sometimes Nicola has found a way. And once again it all came down to the biggest stage. The bar was now raised to 2.01 meters. This wasn't just another height. This was a genuine world-class clearance. A jump that often decides Diamond League victories, major championships, and sometimes even Olympic medals. Mahuchikh stepped onto the runway first. Throughout her career, Yaroslava has built a reputation for making impossible heights appear effortless. Her approach remained calm, measured, completely under control. She exploded off the track, rotated perfectly over the bar, and cleared 2.01 meters. Another world-class jump, another statement from the world record holder. The pressure had instantly shifted. because now everything rested on Nicola Olyslagers. Olyslagers' first attempt, no clearance. Second attempt, once again the bar came down. Now there was only one opportunity left. One jump to stay alive. One jump to force Mahuchikh to keep competing. One jump that could completely transform this competition. The entire stadium seemed to pause. Every eye followed Nicola as she stepped back onto the runway. This was the moment she began her approach. She built speed with every stride, hit the takeoff perfectly, and then she flew. Cleared over 2.01 meters. What an incredible clearance. Not only had she saved the competition, she had done it on her final attempt. And suddenly, the pressure shifted once again. Here's where high jump becomes fascinating. Although both athletes now cleared 2.01 meters, they weren't actually tied, because Nicola had accumulated fewer misses earlier in the competition. That meant she now held the advantage on countback. Mahuchikh would have to clear the higher bar to reclaim first place. And with the bar moving even higher, the London Diamond League was about to reach its dramatic conclusion. With both athletes successfully over 2.01 meters, only one question remained. Who would find one more clearance? The bar rose to 203, a height that demands absolute precision. There is almost no room for error. Every step, every stride, every fraction of a second has to be perfect. And in London, that final 2 centimeters proved to be the difference between victory and defeat. Yaroslava Mahuchikh was first to attack the new height. She had looked composed throughout the competition. Her rhythm was excellent. Her timing had been nearly flawless, but 2.03 meters is another level entirely. She accelerated down the runway, exploded off the takeoff foot, rose high above the bar, but ever so slightly brushed it on the way down. The crossbar wouldn't stay. Her first attempt was unsuccessful. Next came Nicola Olyslagers, fresh off that incredible clutch clearance at 2:01. She carried plenty of momentum. Her approach looked confident. She attacked the bar aggressively, but just like Mahuchikh, she couldn't quite find enough clearance. The bar came crashing down. Neither athlete could separate herself. The battle continued. Round 2, Mahuchikh returned, this time making a slight adjustment to her approach. The world's best high jumpers constantly make tiny corrections throughout competitions. One stride, one takeoff angle, one subtle change in body position. Sometimes that's all it takes. She attacked the bar once again. This attempt looked even closer. For a brief moment, it almost appeared as though the crossbar would stay. But gravity had other ideas. The bar fell once again. Olyslagers now had another opportunity. If she could somehow clear 2.03 meters, the victory would almost certainly be hers. The Australian charged down the runway, produced another excellent jump, but once again, the bar refused to cooperate. Both athletes had now used 2 attempts. Everything came down to one final jump. This is what makes high jump so captivating. Hours of competition, dozens of successful clearances, and it all comes down to one final attempt. Mahuchikh stood quietly at the end of the runway, focused, composed, blocking out everything around her. She began her run, accelerated smoothly, hit the takeoff with tremendous power, rotated beautifully over the bar, but the slightest contact with her legs was enough. The bar dropped, 3 misses, her competition was over. Now all eyes shifted to Nicola Olyslagers. The Australian didn't actually need to clear 2:03, thanks to her superior countback record. She was already leading the competition. but champions rarely pass up the opportunity to chase something even bigger. She still had one final attempt, one final chance to finish with a spectacular clearance. The crowd grew silent once again. She sprinted towards the bar, took off strongly, generated excellent height, but just couldn't quite stay clear. The bar came down, and with that, the competition was over. Nicola Olyslagers was your London Diamond League champion. Both athletes finished with successful clearances at 2.01 metres. But because Nicola accumulated fewer misses throughout the competition, she claimed victory on countback. With the World Championships rapidly approaching, this rivalry is becoming one of the most compelling storylines in all of track and field. Can Mahuchikh continue defending her position as the world's best? Will Olyslagers carry this momentum into the biggest championship of the year? Or could another challenger like Angelina Topić or Eleanor Patterson disrupt everything? If London taught us anything, it's that nothing is guaranteed once the bar reaches 2 metres. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did countback decide the right winner? Who do you think will come out on top in the World Championships? Leave your predictions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.